Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy is planning to visit Taiwan later this year as concerns grow regarding the tension between Taiwan and China. Last year, President Biden committed to defending Taiwan if China invades the island. So a D.C. think tank gamed out the scenarios to see what could happen. Actual war games. Evidently, the U.S. has a good chance of defending Taiwan, but there is a cost. Our military would take significant losses. I'm joined by Mark Cancian, a senior advisor for the International Security Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on the show.
So what is a war game? How does it work?
Well, a war game is actually just what you would think it is. We developed this game to simulate a U.S.-China conflict over Taiwan. The war game has two maps. There's a map for the Western Pacific where air and naval operations take place, and then there's a map for Taiwan where the ground operations take place. The game had about 2,500 counters, and combat was resolved with tables and computer programs. We had two teams that played each iteration, and we played 24 iterations of the game.
Why model an invasion of Taiwan?
Well, the reason is that it's the most dangerous course of action for China. China's been emphatic that they believe Taiwan is part of China and that it will be returned to China at some point. There are many other ways that they could bring Taiwan back. A lot of people have looked at blockades, for example, or political warfare, which may be more likely, but there's no question that the most dangerous course of action would be an actual invasion.
Now, with these scenarios, you make a few assumptions. What are they?
Well, we make a lot of assumptions, which is necessary whenever you're running a war game. We had the assumptions that we considered most likely were we called the base case, and then we had excursions to look at alternatives that were plausible, but maybe not the most likely. Just to give you one example, Japan. We had to assume, of course, what countries would participate and how they might participate. We assumed that Japan would allow the United States to use its many bases in Japan for military operations, but that Japan itself would not participate unless the Chinese struck the Japanese homeland. Now, it turns out that in 19 of the 24 iterations, they did that. We also looked at an excursion where Japan was strictly neutral and did not allow the United States to use its.
In most of the scenarios that you game out, the U.S., Taiwan, and Japan defeat China. But there are some conditions that must be met for that kind of victory. What are those?
The major assumption, the major condition, is that the Taiwanese have to fight.